Okay, let's go ahead and get started, everyone. Thank you for your patience. So once again, this is Patrick Santoso with Axiomatic, and you're in the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Tax Rate Setting Training. So we'll take a look at the process as a whole. Everything begins in the springtime with drafting your warrant or your resolutions for town or school meeting. Those resolutions can be summarized into your proposed budget, which contains your proposed appropriations and your estimated revenues. Following your meeting, you get your MS-232 or MS-22 for schools. So this is your voted appropriations, what came out of the meeting. And then in the summertime, you get your revised revenue estimates on your MS-434 or your MS-24. Both of these lead into the tax rate setting process, the appropriations, how much money you are going to spend, and your revised revenue estimates, how much money you are going to take in. Subtract your revenues from your appropriations, and you'll get the net amount of taxes that you need to raise. Then comes in the MS1 or MS1V. So this is filed by your assessors. This is the total valuation of the municipality or the MS1V of the village district. So in a gross oversimplification, you divide your net appropriations that you need to raise by your assessed value, and that will get you your tax rate. So then both of these move forward to the end of your accounting period with the MS-535 or MS-25, which is also the DOE 25. So this is your final financial summary for the fiscal period. So this will have your actual expenditures and actual revenues. So today we're just going to be talking about the tax rate setting process. And we're going to take a look at this in the PowerPoint, and I'm going to do some live demonstrations. Also be aware we're recording this training, so the recording will be available to you after the training. So the Tax Rate Manager can be accessed either through the Tax Rate tab on the top of the screen or by clicking Continue next to Tax Rate. They'll both take you to exactly the same spot. When you go to the Tax Rate tab, you'll have access to your tax rates. So you can go into them, review them, and approve them. We'll show you how to do that. And you can also print your tax rate report, and that's that printer icon on the left. So the green button gets you into the details of the tax rate, and the printer icon allows you to print off a copy of the tax rate report. So this is the general workflow of generating a tax rate. So your advisor will create the initial rate, and that will use the initial overlay and fund balance to reduce taxes that you reported on your MS-434. Remember, that's your revised revenue estimates. Once the advisor approves that rate, it will go to the municipality for review, and you can optionally update your overlay and your fund balance to reduce taxes. Once you approve the rate, it goes to the DRA supervisor, who reviews and recommends it for director approval. And then the final step is the director approval, and this is when your final tax rate gets set. So at both of these points, you'll have access to view the rate of the when you're doing your review and when the director is doing their review. When the advisor creates it, it will not be visible to you. You won't be able to get into it. And when the supervisor is reviewing it, you'll only be able to print out that report of the tax rate. So the tax rate interface, and again, this is when you click the green Go button to get into the tax rates. You have the top set of tabs. So this has your appropriations and revenues, your tax base, again, the valuation of your community. And then overlay and surplus. This is where you'll make your adjustments to your overlay and fund balance to reduce taxes. And then the bottom section here, this is the tax rate section. So this is always visible with all of the tabs up top. And this will give you your information about your initial and final tax effort and overlay, as well as the components of your tax rate down in that bottom table. You'll also notice that there are some buttons on the bottom. These are your primary controls. You can save your progress, you can cancel and not save your progress, or you can complete your municipal review. So taking a closer look at the overlay and surplus tab, this is where you will land when you go into a tax rate. So here is where you can adjust the amount of fund balance that you're allocating to reduce taxes. So this is money in the bank that you're planning on spending instead of raising it through taxation. So increasing this will lower your property tax rate. And here's where you can adjust your requested overlay. And remember, the overlay is the amount of money that you're setting aside to account for delinquency, non-payment, that sort of thing. So just kind of running through the tabs and the appropriations and revenue tabs, you have all your different sources of appropriations and revenues, and we'll take a look at that in the application as well. Your tax base tab, this is where you can see your valuation filed by your assessor. You can see your current and previous year values there. You'll also notice on all of these columns, there is an adjusted value. That will 99.9% of the time be the same as what was filed. That is just there in case DRA needs to make any overrides for special circumstances. They can, and you can have visibility into anything that was changed, but that is very rarely used. You also have your information tab. This gives you a couple of important things. This gives you fund balance retention recommendations. So 5% of fund balance, holding that in your bank account is the minimum recommended, and then 17% is the maximum recommended. So you can see some guidance on fund balance there. And then also some guidance on the amount of fund balance you would have to use to reduce taxes. By say $1. So that would be $98,420 of fund balance would make this tax rate go down by $1. You also have on the information tab what your current year rate would look like if it was calculated with your old assessment. So if you've had a revaluation, this would show you the impact of the revaluation on the current year tax rate. So just something to compare there. And again, down at the bottom, all the time, you have your tax rate table, and you can hide your tax rate table here by clicking that if you don't want to see it. So here we see our initial tax effort and our final tax effort. The reason those are always a little bit different is the rounding of the tax rate itself. So for that municipal rate, say, if that came out to $5.54.2, say, 54.2 cents, we would round down to 54 cents, and you would be missing out on that 0.2 cents. So you would actually be collecting a little bit less money overall. So that's why the initial and final tax effort are different. It's really the rounding to the nearest penny of the tax rate. So as you go through and update your fund balance and overlay, fund balance, reduce taxes, and overlay, you can click this calculate button, and that will recalculate all of your tax rate information, so you can adjust everything accordingly. So again, you'll click recalculate, this will update, and the tax rate table itself will also update. So let's hop in and do a quick demonstration here. And this is, again, not live, this is our test site. So I'm just going to hop in and I'll use Ackworth 2019 as my demonstration. So again, just to orient you, if you have access to multiple towns, you'll have them in your drop down here. You can also look at your associated entities. So remember, your tax rate can't be set until your villages and your schools have gotten in all of their data. So if we want to switch over to see Fall Mountain, you'll be able to see when they submitted all of their forms in the table down here. So it gives you a little bit of transparency into the other entities that you're tied to in the tax rate setting process. So I'm going to go over to tax rate. We have our report button here and our go button to view the tax rate details. So we're just going to hop in here. And again, it's bringing us to our overlay and surplus tab to begin with. So here is where we can adjust our overlay our fund balance to reduce taxes and our overlay. So if we want to raise a little bit more money to account for delinquency and non-payment, we can up that to $10,000, and you'll see our tax rate right up here went up by a couple of cents. If you want to go the reverse and you want to use some of your fund balance to reduce taxes, you would adjust this number, and we'll click calculate, and that brings that number back down. So if you want the cliff notes of what you need to do for your tax rate, you need to make sure you agree with these two numbers, do a quick check to make sure everything looks appropriate here, and complete your municipal review down here. But let's just run through the tabs really quickly. So again, on the Appropriations and Revenues tab, you have your municipal appropriations, revenues, and it tells you which form all of this stuff came from to get down to your net municipal tax effort. And again, this adjusted column, if DRA needs to override something. You have your county net tax effort. You have your local education net tax effort. You have your state education net tax effort. And if you have any villages, you'll see them available here. Moving over to our tax base, this is where you see your valuation with and without utilities. Again, overlay and surplus, this is where you adjust your fund balance to reduce taxes and your overlay. And remember to click that calculate button. And our information tab. So this is our guidance on fund balance retention, some guideline numbers on how much you need to use if you want to reduce your rate by 10 cents, 50 cents, or $1. And then your current year rate with your old assessment and your comparison of last year's and this year's rates. You can kind of see those side by side. So now if I scroll down, the whole time this tax rate table has been here. We can hide it if you'd like, but it stays open by default. So you can see the details of your tax rate right down here, your initial tax effort, your tax base that's having the tax applied to it, the resulting tax rate, and then your final tax effort. So you can see all of that accordingly. You will notice that the final tax effort is the same for the county, local, and state ed. Those amounts have to be exact, so any rounding is rolled into this municipal final tax effort. So again, here's where you complete your municipal review, or we could save our progress. And I'm going to go back over to the PowerPoint here, and let's take a look at a little bit more of the details of the overlay. So you'll notice that you get a requested overlay, and then there's a final overlay. So the overlay is what is adjusted to account for that rounding of the tax rate. So let's just take a look at how that math actually works. So say we have an initial overlay of $5,900, and we have a tax effort of $775,900 and a tax base of $15.45 million. So looking at what our tax rate would be, we simply divide our tax effort by our tax base, multiplied by 100, that will get us our tax rate. So just carrying that math through, we get $5.02 cents. Obviously, we're not going to charge that 0.2 cents, so we're going to round to the nearest penny. That gets our actual tax rate to be $5.02. So now let's calculate what our final tax effort would be using that $5.02 tax rate. So again, multiplying that through, our number's a little bit different now. We're going to actually raise $775,590. So we're actually off by $310, and we're going to adjust our overlay by that $310. So that's why there's an initial and a final overlay. That's just where we adjust everything so the math ties out to account for that rounding of the tax rate to the nearest 20. And again, the system does all of this for you, so there's not really anything to worry about there. That's just some of the details on the math. So I do want to take a look at the tax rate report here and just familiarize you with it. So this is a 4-page report. We'll take a look at the various sections of it. The cover sheet has a summary of all of your tax rates, and it will be signed, as you see in this version, by the director once it is finalized. When it is not finalized, there'll be watermarks letting you know that it's a draft tax rate and shouldn't be used yet. So in the top section of this report, we have our tax rate summary. So the exact same data that you saw on the screen, but this is just in a printable version. On the second page, we have our appropriations and revenues. So the first bit, you've got your municipal accounting overview, your county, and your education. So again, all the same details available on the screen. You also have your valuation. So this is the MS1 from your assessor, so you can see the valuation components there. This example has a village district as well, so you can see, in this case, Conway Village's value. Then you have the tax commitment verification page. This is a very important page. This should be filled out by your tax collector. This is where they confirm that they are pledging to collect within 0.5% of the amount of money that you're trying to raise in taxes. So this is a really important form, and you're actually not done with the process until this has been signed and uploaded into the system. So this is really important. So when your tax rate is finalized, the first thing you want to do is go print it out, get this over to your tax collector so that they can sign it and upload it. This actually completes the tax rate process for you. On the last page, you have your fund balance retention guidance sheet. So this will show the amount of fund balance that you are retaining against the recommended retained amounts. So in this example, the amount we're retaining is 21.65%. So this is outside of the range. It's actually above the range. So there's just a statement here that you're acknowledging that this is not within the minimum or maximum recommended thresholds, which is okay. So I do want to hop back into the application and just show you how to get this report out. And then I'll show you how you can get help as you run through this. So this will run your tax rate report for you. So you'll notice this is very heavily watermarked and does not have the director's signature on it yet because this is a preliminary rate and it's not finalized. So we can export this out to a number of different formats. If you just want to print it, PDF is probably the easiest. So we'll just take a look at that, open that up for us. So again, this is our 4-page report that we just went through. So you can print this using the printer icon. So that's how you get your tax rate report. You can also, on your home tab, you'll be able to get to your tax rate right here on your administrative forms tab. So you can view your tax rate right here. Here is where you upload that tax commitment. So once your tax collector signs off on that, you would upload that signed attachment. And they also look for some other items for you, your final issue tax warrant, summary, and bill, etc. So make sure you hop over here once your tax rate is set and get all of these documents uploaded. And that will help complete the process a little bit more smoothly. So I'm just going to switch back over here to the PowerPoint. I have one last slide, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions. So you do have 2 avenues that you can get support for this application. You can contact your municipal advisor at the Department of Revenue, or you can contact Axiomatic Tech Support. So when you log in, you'll see your advisor's information is right here on the homepage. So you can contact them. Axiomatic's contact information is there. You can also get help by clicking the help button. This will actually take you to the knowledge base. There are help articles about each piece of the process all the way through. There are also recordings of the trainings, and you can submit help desk tickets right from there as well. We also have phone and email support. So how do you decide who you go to for help? The folks at DRA, your municipal advisor or the municipal supervisor are there if you have questions about what you should do. How much overlay should you be requesting? You don't know which forms you need to file. You have questions about how to report your data to DRA. Any sort of questions like that where you need to be advised on what you should be doing, that would be a question for DRA. If you know what you want to do, but you can't figure out how to do it, or you're having problems with the system, that would be Axiomatic Tech Support. So those are both available to you during normal business hours. I know a lot of folks have MS1 extensions this year, so it might be a little bit until you are actually doing this tax rate setting process, but we will have a recording of this training that'll be available. And again, kind of the Cliff Note version is you'll get an email saying your tax rate is ready. Go in, review it, update your overlay and fund balance to reduce taxes, and send it back to DRA. Once you do your review, it generally works through the process pretty quickly, and just look for that email saying that your final tax rate has been set, and you'll be able to go in and take a look at that. So with that, that is the end of our presentation here. I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.